Alright, everyone's here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Marsya, you want me
Yeah?
to... Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think you're stuck a bit.
Oh, really? Wait. I'll try to join again.
Sorry, Marsha, I just wanted to test if I'm audible.
Yeah, I can hear you, Lukman.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, there are a lot of people here.
Hello? Mic test? Is it
Hi.
clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alright, cool.
Alright, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll start. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. I bid to our speakers for today, as well as the audience who are listening through this Instagram Live. Firstly, as the representative for the Student Representative Council from Kolej Marsya, I would like to say thank you for joining us today. And we hope that everyone would learn and gain something from the Student Leaders Forum. For your information, our speakers for tonight are the student leaders from Kolej Yayasan UEM, Kolej Tuanku Ja'afar, and Kolej Marsya. Today, we would highlight the topic that is quite relatable for both of us here, now that we're in pandemic, right? Which is increasing concerns of students' mental health. Before introducing them, let me introduce myself first. My name is Marsya Sorfina, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's forum. Now, moving on to the introduction of speakers, Lukman, would you like to go first?
Sure. So, hi everyone, good evening. My name is Muhammad Luqman bin Muhammad Nawar, but you can call me Luqman. I'm currently studying my A-levels in Kolej Yayasan UEM, and I'm glad to be part of this event hosted by KMS tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lukman. Alright, Adinda, you're next.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Adinda Asfar. You can call me Adinda or Dinda, and I study my A-levels at Kolej Tuanku Ja'afar, and I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you. And last but not least, our very own SRC member, Nabhan.
Alright, so hello everyone. My name is Nabhan Mizan. You can call me Nabhan. I think just like both of them, I'm taking, I think for the most of us, we're taking A-levels. I'm holding the position of Public Relations and Information in the KMS Student Representative Council. And I think that's about it. Yep.
Thank you so much to the speakers for your great introduction. It's hope that all of you are doing well right now. So dear audience, as we all know, the pandemic COVID-19 is currently a big issue for us, and because of it, a lot of us have to go through online classes for months. Since we're in pandemic, I believe it's a great initiative to have online learning as a stopgap measure so that students are not left behind by the education systems. However, this is not possible for the students who are not able to access the internet or accommodate themselves through online learning. Besides that, sitting in front of the laptops for hours might not be ideal, and for some of us, they might have to struggle in managing their schoolwork and house chores. When all of this happens, we can see that more students are struggling with their mental health, whether they are diagnosed or not, maybe due to stress, anxiety, and constant worries. From here, we can see how COVID-19 had a major impact in our lives. But today, we're gonna focus more from the students' point of views, because I believe each one of us here has their own opinions. Well, for me, I feel like it's really sad to see someone, if he or she is actually struggling with mental health, but they don't realize about it. Maybe because they're too busy with their work to the point that they're not aware, or maybe they just want to keep quiet because they don't want people around him to be concerned. So I find that this is really sad, the fact that they don't really understand themselves, right? So to all speakers, let's say this happened, and in your own circle of friends, how would you identify if your friend might have mental health problems? Adinda, would you like to go first?
Sure. So, obviously, when it comes to your friends, keep in mind that you are not a psychologist or a psychiatrist in any way. You are just merely a watching friend. And so, just some things you can be mindful of is maybe a close friend of yours used to be really into a certain activity, and then all of a sudden, they became very, very uninterested in that, very unmotivated. You even bring it up, and they were like, "Yeah, you know what? This is not my kind of thing anymore. It doesn't sound too fun." That could be a sign of, that they're struggling. So they sort of detach themselves from things that they used to enjoy. A second thing is withdrawal. So in that case, you can sort of see where they lose sight of things. They are very disorganized all of a sudden. They do things impulsively without much thought given into it. Another thing maybe, although this might be influenced by other things, but a loss in appetite or an increase in one could show that they're struggling because they're not really taking care of themselves. So they're not watching what they're eating, so it's not healthy, or they feel like it's some kind of insecurity, so they feel they must eat less or more, and vice versa. It's just a lot of things that you have to watch for in a friend. Yeah.
Thank you, Adinda, for the wonderful insight. So Nabhan, if this situation happened to you and you're aware of the symptoms that Adinda have said, for example, sleeping problems, do you think that we have the full obligation or just ask them to seek for professional help?
All right. So, of course, this is in the perspective of a friend, right? I think when we are talking about helping, as the obligation of helping as well as seeking help from professionals, I think that it can come in hand in hand. For example, it is obligatory for us to help, and help can be in many forms, and one of those forms can be seeking professional help. So, of course, some of us know there are various organizations that help to cover about mental health awareness, and sometimes you don't have to be someone who is suffering from these mental health problems. Instead, you can be a friend who is concerned and you can ask advice for them. So that I think is a very wise step as someone who is not a professional, which is seeking advice from a professional on how you yourself can help that friend. I think another thing that we can do alternatively is, as a friend, of course, you know that person for a long time. So maybe we can attempt to cheer them up and see if if it doesn't come to a positive effect, if in the end they just stay in that same bad state. I think that is when you can refer to a counselor or a psychiatrist and so on. So in the end, we can advise, but of course, we should always refer to a professional when it comes to that certain point.
Yes, I really agree with that. As much as we are their closest ones, like maybe friends, we can only give them like emotional support, maybe in terms of advice and cheer them up. But this only come to a certain extent, and that's why it's better to refer to the professionals. Not to say that we don't have the full obligation, but our responsibility is just to be there for them as a friend. Since Nabha has mentioned at the first stage, we as friends do have rules to help our friends who are struggling with their mental health. So Lukman, in your opinion, as a friend, what are some things that you think we should consider while we're consulting them? For example, things we should keep in mind, or maybe things we should avoid.
That's a very interesting question. Like, before I move on to just answering the question, I'd just like to philosophically assess how our community has just gone leaps and bounds in addressing mental health as a problem by society. I mean, this amazing initiative by KMS paired with other like hundreds of other initiatives out there already kind of outline the fact that mental health is a problem, and our generation has addressed that. But I think the next step should be like advising people as to how actually they go about addressing the mental health, especially if they see it in their peers, and considering we're not professionals, right? And to answer this question, I find Adinda's earlier point very relatable, that we need to properly understand our role as a facilitator for them to get treatment, not as the assessor itself. But it is not to also undermine the roles that friends play, because oftentimes people don't just nudge themselves into seeing a consultant or a psychiatrist, right? And friends are the ones who give that strong support system. And once again, I believe, as mentioned by Nabhan earlier, that like approaching a friend is an entirely subjective and personal experience. And so there's no like blanket treatment as to how you're supposed to approach a particular friend. But some general things that come to mind right now is, the first one would be to respect privacy, because mental health is always known as a sensitive topic, and even if it comes out to the public, at least the initial addressing of the issue should come at anonymity and privacy. The second could be like general well-being comments that don't go into us assessing their problems, like cheering them out or listening, which does wonders to people who are depressed. And finally, if we can see or just assess in our limited knowledge that the symptoms are continuing and it just elongates, then probably we can nudge them or introduce the idea that they should go for a better form of consultation with a professional psychiatrist. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Luqman. I really agree with all the points that you have stated just now. So as we can see, our speakers here have emphasized on the importance of responsibility as a friend. Is like what Luqman said, you're just helping them out, but you're not assessing that, saying that they have this disorder. You're not supposed to do that. Okay. So moving on to the next session, we're gonna make it more interactive. So I'll present a scenario to all speakers, and each one of you will get a different scenario basically. And for each speaker, can you tell us how would you react, or maybe the steps that you would have taken if you were to put in this situation? And for our live viewers here, you can just comment down below to state your opinions as well. You can also ask anything in the Q&A box, and we're gonna proceed with it if we have the time. All right, so for our first scenario will be handled by Luqman, which focuses on mental health during online class. So let me read the situation. Your friend Abu has become distant and silent. He doesn't appear as energized or upbeat as he usually is. He didn't do all of his schoolwork, and his grades have been steadily declining, which is unusual for him. What will you do now that you've become concerned?
Thank you, Marsha, for that situation. I think this starting introductory situation is somehow very relatable to all of us, because it's something that we can visibly see in our friends, right? So I don't have, like, once again, a blanket approach to this, because there's a lot of things that needs to be considered, like how open this particular Abu is to talking about it, or how close he is with me. But generally, what I would advise is to check up on him, regardless of how close I am. If, say, theoretically I'm a close friend of Abu's, then I would personally go check up on him and ask him if there's something wrong, because that early nudge of asking them what's wrong will always be the most important part in like ranting out or finding the problems that someone keeps inside. But if I'm not relatively close to this Abu, I wouldn't say I would approach him myself, because sometimes people might be taken aback by that. So I would reach out to Abu's close friend and then ask him/her to reach out to Abu, because that would be relatively more effective. And if Abu gets better, even after just like an assessment or a friendly level assessment of the problem, indicating that maybe the problem might not be as in-depth as we think it is, then that's good for him. But if the symptoms elongate, then I would probably advise Abu to go and seek help from a professional.
Thank you, Luqman. So it's basically depends on how bad Abu's symptoms is. For the next case, on a friend who is unwilling to talk, I would like to pass it to Adinda. So Adinda, the scenario goes like this. You're back to face-to-face sessions after months of online classes. However, Gina, a regular acquaintance, seemed to be quieter and more distracted than usual. You don't know her that well, but you inquire about her well-being and note that she appears to be quiet. Everything is okay, she assures you. You tell her that you're always there to talk if she needs it, and that it's great to see her again. But as you keep an eye on her, you've observed that she's different from before. What will you do?
Thank you. Well, I think a lot of this can be applied as well to what Lukman said earlier. It really just depends on what kind of person this so-called Gina is. From the situation, you said that I was acquaintance to her, so it seems that I would have talked to her a couple times. Then in that case, I would still approach her just slightly after she's said she's fine. Maybe she just wants more time to herself. You never know what someone's going through. It just might be a personal dilemma, family issues. You might not even be able to help. So giving time would definitely help. And then if I feel it still feels a little off with her, even after the time given, then I think I would really just nudge for a one-on-one talk in some way, or see how she's really doing and get her talking, because talking really is like the first step to solving anything with what you're struggling with mentally. Burying it deep down doesn't do anything, and if Gina seems to be doing that, you wouldn't want her to do that alone and feel as though she wouldn't want to burden anyone. So when you do get a chance to talk to her and she does agree, you have to make sure that you agree to any sort of boundaries that she sets. For example, don't ask about certain things, or if she leaves some information out, maybe try not to question it as much as possible, because she would respect that better. And then once you do get to talk to her, give her your full attention. Make sure your phone isn't nearby, so you don't check any text messages. The location of that talk is also very important. So you wouldn't want to go to, say, a mall to talk. You would go somewhere more quiet or private. And from this, you can tell that there isn't really a set way to approach this. There's just a list of do's and don'ts, and it's sort of mishmashed together, and you kind of see which one you feel would apply best with this friend. Just more things about the don'ts is, again, don't judge or accuse her or just use an accusatory tone when talking to her, and let her finish talking. Don't interrupt, give your opinion until she's done. She probably has a lot going on inside, so it would really feel as though you weren't being listened to if someone just interrupts you every time you started talking about a certain issue that was very personal to you and troubling. So it wouldn't really help. And again, like I said in the beginning, you're not a psychologist. You're just a friend. So a friend is there just to listen. So just give it your all to listen. And if you feel that she needs some help, maybe approach her some more and suggest that she go meet someone professional regarding this if she's really struggling. Yeah.
Thank you, Adinda. I think it's really important. Let's say if they're asking for your advice, then I believe that your body language also plays an important role to show that you're actually listening to them. So that's the point that I think I would add. As for Nabhan, our last scenario specifies on mental health emergency. So the story goes like this. When you go on a stroll with a friend of yours, Mary, she tells you that she has been feeling awful recently and that she just wants it to stop. You're worried that this will lead to suicide. You ask to whether she is contemplating about it. It is a myth that asking this will put a thought into someone's head. She claims to have considered it, but she hasn't made any plans to do so. So what are your plans, Nabhan?
All right. So thank you very much, Marsha, for passing it on to me. And I think this question in itself, it is very important, I think, to outline the term, which is suicidal thoughts. So I think a lot of people they're only concerned For example, if let's say we find it in news that a suicide happened and we feel bad for it, but however, have we ever actually identified those who had suicidal thoughts? Because I did some research on WHO, and it said that about only 50% of people are identified, those who are having suicidal thoughts, that go to the hospital, or another 50% don't even seek for professional help. So I think the first step, after which I consider the points given by Luqman and Adinda very, very true, which is of course approaching them and putting respect, showing your respect to them, because it is regarding their personal problems and we do not want to cross over that certain line. So after that is seeking professional help. So as I mentioned, okay, let's say I think a lot of us may know some aids, right? For example, there is our suicide prevention hotline and all, right? However, how many of us actually use their services? Do we actually understand how it is we can utilize them for the better use of people surrounding us? Because I think maybe most of us haven't even tried dialing that number, although we have had that certain friend who experiences such negative thoughts. So I think if we take a bigger perspective towards it, it's I think evidently in Malaysia, it is regarding the culture of seeking for help. We tend to have a view that people who go and meet the counselors as people who are weak, who cannot handle their stress. However, in reality, everyone has their quirks. Everyone has a different way or different problems that they have to experience through. And as friends, we should be respectful for what they are going through. So my point here is that we should never look down upon people who are seeking help. Instead, we should be people who support the culture of seeking for help, because everyone needs help. Everyone is not perfect, and these quirks are what makes us human. So yeah, I rest my point there.
Thank you, Nabhan. That's why we all have to always look out for our friends here. Thank you so much to all speakers here. Based on your responses just now, I must say that all of you are indeed great friends who always look out for each other. And that's the friendship that we all want to maintain. All right, proceeding to the next question. Since the start of pandemic, we can see that there are a lot of challenges involved during online learning. And since we're now talking about students' mental health, right? And because as well, we want to spread the awareness about this.
All right. So regarding burnout from class, right? So yes, I actually have experienced it before, and very recently actually. So how did it came to be is because back then, after post AS, there was like a gap of free time, right? We had a long break. So I was like, okay, I have a long break. So what am I supposed to do? You know what? I'll join this activity. I'll join that activity, and so on. As a result from this, now, actually recently, I'd had to juggle up a lot of activities in one time. So as to how I responded to this, well, I think a very important, well, for me personally, what I did was that I created a daily checklist. So I have this daily checklist where I have I number it according to which one is important, and I try to cover it one by one. So for example, if we had to complete our UCAS application, so okay, that's coming up first because that's very important for us. And then maybe secondly is regarding this talk, and so on and so forth. So by doing that, I have this certain feeling of achievement that I've done what I had to do, and in the end of the day, I can rest. I think rest is also important. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think we need an actual a proper plan on what we have to do, and we try to complete it, because in the end we can't skip the things that we have signed up for. However, I like to stress that if you find yourself unable, like, you know what, I can't take this anymore. So I think that's the point that you need to approach your teacher and ask that, you know what, I think, teacher, I respect, this activity and so on, but I have to, I can't join this activity because I have too much things in my hand. And I'm pretty sure that your teacher would understand your situation. And I think that's how I like to emphasize the, how do you call this? Teamwork between students and teachers. I think that's very, very important in school. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really, really inspiring. So our viewers here, I hope that you guys learn that you always have to stand up for yourself if you're not capable of doing something, and always create a schedule to see the things that you have to get it done by the deadlines. All right. Can we have Adinda as the next speaker?
Sure. Actually, I want to start by saying I completely relate to what you said earlier, Nabhan. So I actually experienced something quite similar. It was during my last year, during my time as a lower six student in KTJ. So we had our trial exams coming up. And by the way, before I start, I want to say that this happened, I think now that I'm looking back, twice. It happened during my trial season and my actual exam season. Both situations were sort of very similar in the sense that I felt very pressured to just do really, really well, even if it meant that I went above and beyond for not just my studies, but other stuff like extracurricular activities. I notice now that I actually took a lot of jobs, and I could have said no to them, but I just said yes because I felt that, I felt so overwhelmed that might as well just shrink that thought down with more work to do, and which is obviously so unhealthy. And I'm glad that I've gotten over that now, thankfully. But I feel like what made me really sink into that really deep hole was sort of, we just came out of a 6-month quarantine, period, and that really messed up with my whole routine at home. My sleep schedule was horrible before this, and then all of a sudden I was put into a boarding sort of environment at KTJ, and I thought I was doing quite well, but in fact I was sort of struggling, and I didn't even realize it myself until exams came by. And I feel like everyone around me was a very high achieving student with scholarships from places I didn't even imagine myself trying out for, and so I felt motivated to push myself, and it caused me to burn out. And this happened both times during trials and my final exams. So yeah, and I got over that by actually during the summer break. Now that I'm thinking about it, the break gave me time to just, give time for myself. And I found the best way to overcome this was for me to visually see what everything I needed to do was. So, for example, it was July and in that area, and we had like our uni apps, UCAS and all that stuff is going on, and I was very, very overwhelmed, and I didn't know what was going on. So what I did was I just took a blank piece of paper and I wrote down everything that I could think of that was within my deadlines, my responsibilities, what I need to get done. And from that, I organized my thoughts. After that, it got a lot easier, way easier. That was the starting point of the healing in a way. And now I have this planner book, and in the very front page is that specific list of responsibilities. And now every single day I have a to-do list, much like you, Nabhan. So I go through my day with a checklist, and I make them the night before, make sure that I have everything in line so I'm not, stressed or feel, messy in the head. And yeah, I think what's really important is having to find your own system, because I know this might not work for everybody, and it certainly didn't work for me like 6 months ago, but it does now. So I think that's a really good thing to think about.
That's really inspiring, Adinda.
Or is it my turn to share now? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Is it clear? All
Yeah.
right. So I've also experienced my fair share of burnout, I guess, but my story was earlier on when I started A levels in KYUM. After some self-reflection, there's a lot of factors that led to that burnout. Like personally, if there's any one of you who can relate in the viewers, that I'm a very auditory and visual-based learner, so I don't really rely much on writing or note-taking, but prefer listening and actually interacting with my friends. So that was one factor, I guess, as online class completely takes away a big part of that interaction. A second factor that I could think was that I really enjoy the concept of education itself, especially regarding the interactions that you have with a teacher and your friends. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it kind of summarizes the difference between reading a book physically, like having a physical copy of the book, as opposed to reading a digital e-version of the book. And the third was, I guess, expectation that college was going to be enjoyable physically with my friends, as I could have that class where I really enjoy taking and having a bunch of friends who are equally as excited on a subject with me. And when I started KY I started straight away with online class in July, so I was slightly disappointed at first. And as much as I tried to keep up my spirit of continuing to be a good student, I inevitably found myself in a slump of motivation during the first semester. I couldn't really focus much in class, and somehow to an extent got easily distracted with a lot of things. So as much as I tried to calm myself down and put myself back to that, it just didn't feel the same as physical class, and that really got me in a spiral. The way I kind of managed to lessen the impact or got myself back on track was to find back the cure that I missed in physical class, which was my friends. I guess you can see I'm a social person, so I spend a lot of my free time, or at least the more discussion based aspect of education, constantly on call with my friends, whether or not we're discussing on a particular topic or just doing the homework together. That doesn't even require teamwork, but just the idea of having companionship when you're being educated is something that I miss in physical education, and I got that even though it was virtually through call. An advice that I'd like to give, like based on my lesson, is that I think it's okay for you to experience burnout because everyone experiences it in this session. And it's also okay for you to recover from burnout slowly. You don't necessarily have to like have a life-changing moment where you find your motivation back again. The tips that Nabhan and Adinda gave were very brilliant tips that could get you on track. So please, by all means, do it. But if you try and force yourself to recover as fast as you can and it's not working, don't be too hard on yourself, because these are like very challenging times and not everyone can simply recover from a burnout in just a single day. So treat yourself with care and find what works best for you.
Thank you, Lukman. I think our viewers here also agree with all our speakers for today. And also our director, Dr. Saida, she commented that to always prioritize your self-care so that you can care for the others, don't overdo it so that you won't feel overwhelmed, like Lukman said just now. Thank you so much, everyone. Sadly, we're almost at the end of our forum for tonight. But before we end, maybe we can have a Q&A session because I see a lot of questions for our viewers here. I'll just choose a few. All right. Someone who said those with mental health is just craving for attention and how to counter them.
Sorry, Marsha, could you repeat that?
The question is that how would you react towards someone who said those with mental health is just craving for attention and how to counter them? Who would like to go first?
If anyone doesn't mind, I would like to go first.
All right, Adinda.
I think it's really important. I think it's really important to note that mental illnesses, they sort of show in different ways, you know? So that's sort of someone's way of coping. They might be a little more, you know, outright about it, and that's okay. They might make really dark jokes, but that's their own way of coping, and you shouldn't judge that. Some people, on the other hand, they are on the down low about it. They don't really want to talk about it. But if you claim that they are just doing that to gain attention, whilst not actually doing anything outright to gain that attention, in the sense that they're not loud about it, they're just quiet, and they're just keeping to themselves, that's not looking for attention. That's more, you know, someone really, really struggling. And, you know, I saw this one article saying that actually, if you see someone that, if you feel that you are looking for attention with your mental illness, that's not a good sign either, you know? It just shows that you are still struggling. You're questioning your own capability to sort of justify your own actions. You shouldn't need to think your struggles through in that way. Just you should be able to have your own time to deal with them as you feel is most comfortable and is necessary. And if that means being loud and talking about it is the way, then that's the way to go. And if it's the other way around, then that's just how someone is like, and you can't really do much about it because you're not the one experiencing it. So you don't really get to have a say. Yeah.
Thank you, Adinda. I think we're going to continue with another question. It's from Faik. So he says, some says that we should keep a professional side that disregards your mental health problem. What are your opinions about it?
Marsha? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Bye. Terima kasih.
All right. That's a very interesting statement that I think could be interpreted depending on an individual, depending on his or her working style and education style too. But personally, I think it would be very borderline dangerous and slightly like counterintuitive for you to separate your mental health with your professional side, because essentially our mental health dictates every aspect of your life. And although it might seem logical for us to be professional in professional times, but say we have a mental issue that isn't addressed, then that issue will show itself in all aspects of life. including our professional, social, personal life, and every like imaginable facet of you living. So instead of treating it as two different personalities, for example, maybe a personal side of you and a more professional, education oriented, I think it's nice to imagine your mental health as a reflection of you taking care of yourself and being a better person and well cared person physically and mentally would just change and reflect in your productivity and better performances in professional and personal settings. That's my opinion.
Nabhan, do you have anything to add?
I think Lukman worded it, I think, perfectly, because I think people tend to say that, okay, so this is like my personal side and this is my professional side. Well, in reality, um, you any side of you is you. So however you want to portray yourself, I think it's best to not, for example, keeping a separate identity to yourself. It is best to engage with people. And actually, for me personally, I like to be open on how I am, like during work and maybe not during work, because I think it's better that way, so that I won't have this certain insecurity, for example, that I'm afraid if people would find out. So this is for me personally. Of course, it's not the same for everyone, but I like to be open with any side, that any virgins that I can consider myself to be, because I don't want to be always concerned or having the anxiety of exposing my other self that I don't show to people. So yeah.
Thank you. For the next question, is from the Nobus 99. What are your thoughts about parents who doesn't want to listen to their children's side of story?
I think I'll take this one. Okay, so I have not experienced this personally, like for myself, but I have had a friend who experienced this, and well, through our conversations, I think my emphasis here is that I did have the conversation with him. So over here we can see that he has a method of venting it out, of actually telling someone. And I think that's important for all of us. We have to identify our alternatives, because although there is this certain someone that we always rely upon, we never know what's going to happen the next day. And unfortunately, if our parents don't give the support, if although we have tried to converse, I think it's best for us to find an alternative, because of course our school systems have that we have our counselors and we have friends. So it's always important to know who these people you can refer to and actually engaging with them. And if, as a friend, if you can see them having these symptoms that we have discussed before, it is also our responsibility to engage with them, so that they know that there are other people who can support them.
All right, I agree with that. I think this is gonna be the last question. Since all of you are the student leaders in your school, so you guys know more about the students, right? So what do you think, in your opinion, what can the college or maybe the school management do to help these people?
I'll start with that one then. In terms of KTJ, I guess we've only started the beginning of the year, but I have been at KTJ for quite some time now, and I feel that one way the school could provide more support to the students is just give a little more transparency in what you tell kids. There's this one issue that I'm pretty sure is brought up in other places as well, not just KTJ, but students don't really get what rules are being implemented, and therefore they don't really know what certain rules are, and they tend to break it, and then teachers would confront them in front of a crowd, which is never nice. And some students may have, anxiety or some kind of, I don't know, trauma with being in a crowd. You never know. And I feel like a way that the school could combat that is just be more transparent with the students. You are there to help those students to grow, and therefore they need all the information that they can possibly get from that institution in a way. And this applies to not just the students, but the staff as well. I feel like it would benefit just everyone in general if we were all just a lot more open with one another, and with everyone else. It's just having that support system, and if the school gives you that support system in the form of, say, counselors, then you should try to make use of it. Yeah, it's there for a reason, and if it doesn't work for you, then perhaps it just didn't work for you. It's nobody else's fault. It's not your fault that it didn't work for you either. It's just what works for you is what works for you, and what doesn't is just what doesn't. That's just how it is. And I think that's what makes mental health really complicated and hard to get over, for lack of a better term. And yeah, just the transparency is really important between the institute and students.
Thank you, Adinda. So Adinda highlights about transparency. What about you, Luqman, since you're the president in KY?
Oh, yeah. I think the institution plays quite a big role because it kind of like represents what the students want in general. So I believe a lot of institutions already have like a version of, in KY it's called peer support group. So I believe a lot of institutions have versions of these peer support groups, and a lot of time their role kind of like morphs into being to address the mental health problems of the student body. What I think could be improved for KY also, and just like to point to other institutions who have peer support groups, especially in directing mental health, is to probably design a structure that facilitates every single model of people who are suffering through a mental illness. Although that's not possible, because Adinda pointed out that it's just too complex. Everyone is different. But at least I think some categories could exist. For example, as an illustration, what the peer support group in KY does for now is that the first thing it does, the first layer would be just that it presents itself as a group that's available to everyone, meaning everyone can join it and share whatever they want to share anonymously. So that's already a collaborative sharing. But what the peer support group also does, and I applaud them, is that they have like routine weekly names which are gazetted as people of interest to contact, specifically if you have any personal problems that you wouldn't want to exactly share with the group, but with a member of the peer support group that you trust. And one thing that I really like in the structure right now for KY is that they integrate the counselor, like the official counselor of the school, with the peer support group. Because as much as counselors are the relevant authorities that should be contacted, there's some unspoken fear peer support group does is that it takes people and analyzes, like, just based on the problems that they share, and funnel them directly towards the counselor. So I think the branding and imaging is relatively also important. So it's not branded as if you come to share your problems at the peer support group, we're going to direct you straight to the counselor, because that's going to slightly discourage some people who are afraid of counselors, right? But more so that if you go through the peer support group, and we're going to give all the friendly support and general well-being tips that we can, but if there are other improvements that we think can be done to your mental health, we're going to forward you to the relevant authorities. So the counselor plays an important role in the peer support group, yet it doesn't brand itself as the main solver of all the problems, even though it is eventually. So I think that that imaging of how approachable people are to mental health is important. Yeah.
I think Marsya as well. So of management, I think important is involved in
Hold
Hi.
on, we're having a few technical problems with
I see. No
Marsha.
problem.
Hello, Nabhan. Welcome back, everyone. We're
oh
so
my
sorry
god.
for this
Hi.
problem. Now we're currently waiting for Lukman. I guess we're almost at the end of our forum, actually. Thank you so much for everyone who has re-entered. Let's hold on for Lukman.
So Afi, that's you, right? Holding hosting.
Yes, it's me. Yeah.
All right. So I guess Marsha had some problems with the
Hello,
connection.
Lukman. Okay, we're back at it. We're so sorry. Marsha has some technical difficulty going on. So where were we?
We basically finished on the last question actually. So I think we're proceeding with the closing.
Okay, for the closing. Yeah, thank you so much for everyone who has sent in questions and for everyone who has been with us throughout the entire live forum. I'm so sorry I cannot turn on my camera, but I'll just be a stand-in host for now as Marsha cannot re-enter. So, last words I would say before we end our sessions. Like, is there any general tips or last things you want to say, motivating words that you have to say for everyone who has joined our live today? You can start with Lukman, I guess.
All right. So I have some that I'd like to share, I guess. I'll try and keep this as short and concise as possible. I have 3 tips that hopefully it's not as common as the ones you read in social media. The first is that I think exposure to natural sunlight is really important. I read somewhere that humans require at least 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight exposure, and the environment in which you are in heavily affects the mental state of your mind. Even if you feel that as of now you're fine, a lot of your mood can be swayed by what environment you're in. So, and you can start getting this sunlight exposure not necessarily through sports in the evening, but you could just start by your study environment early in the morning as you're ongoing your online classes. So open your blinds, open your windows, get some fresh air, and get some natural sunlight, as that's a really good boost to your mind subconsciously. First tip. Second tip would be to detach from technology whenever you don't need technology. So, our generation of students in online class has been so accustomed to spending hours in front of a laptop and a phone. So, whenever you have the opportunity not to do so, just don't. For example, if you're going on a jog and you contemplate listening to music while jogging, try and take a day off without listening to music, because you've had that exposure, or at least wearing earphones for hours in class, and try and spend some personal time with the nature or just yourself without any technological interaction whatsoever. Yeah. And the final tip that I have is to just integrate activity in your routine. So, like sports is a common thing that you can integrate in your routine, or just physical activity of moving around as opposed to sitting in one particular spot. Like, personally, also because of family responsibilities, I have to water the plants every day in the morning. So, I make that a part of my routine. Every day I wake up before class, water the plants, and after class also I water the plants twice a day. So that gets integrated into my routine, and I get like sunlight, and there's also like physical activity of moving around. So get natural sunlight, have a routine, and finally detach yourself from technology whenever you can. That's all for me.
Thank you so much, Lukman. Yes, I totally agree with everything that he just said. I hope everyone's taking notes, you guys who are still listening. Thank you, Lukman. Adinda, is there anything you'd like to say?
In terms of tips, I have, I guess, just three main ones. The first one is having a support system. It is so important because of online classes. You're sort of you're with your family, but you're missing out on, you know, the social interaction that you normally get with going to classes in person or going on campus to start your learning. So do get in contact with your friends. I'm not one to say that much though. I'm really bad at getting back on text, but I'm working on that. But in any case, if you have any problems, there is no need to bury it all by yourself. You may have the thought that you don't want to burden anyone, or it's a personal dilemma that nobody really cares about that. If you're struggling, and that means you need help. So getting in contact with a trusted friend is what I recommend as a first, like right off the bat. Secondly, is find a form of expression. Being at home, you're sort of trapped in this weird little bubble, and it's not necessarily a nice bubble. You're in this weird loop of unproductive routine of just sitting there in the same position every time. So, for example, what I like to do is if I just want to release some stress or I feel quite unproductive, I'll maybe write in my journal, talk about my day, or I'll do an art piece on the side, or I'll just, you know, just loosen up and listen to some music. Although don't overdo that, but what Lukman said, detach yourself from social media. And I can't remember what I was going to bring up for the last thing, but I feel besides that, you just, having a system, I said that before, that's really, really important for everyone to find your system while being at home. Because for me, when I was boarding, everything was sort of given to you in a system. And at home, that was sort of gone. And I had this weird freedom that I didn't know what to do with. And without better judgment, I would waste all that time just going on, you know, YouTube, this weird loophole of just weird cat videos, or this guy in the woods making houses out of dirt. You know, it's not a good place to go. But besides that, yeah. So having a support system, finding your self-expression, and finding your system. Everyone's system is different, and so there is no two like systems. Just find something that you feel works for you, and that's already good enough.
That is very, very true. Support systems and people, basically, just having human interaction. I totally agree with that, Dinda. We are already at 10:16. Nabhan, would you like to have the last say before we end our session?
Yeah, I guess I'll sum it up into one main point. I think this is, I like to advise everyone here, which is regarding making full use of the engagement that is possible through online technology. So what I mean by this is, I think this is very evident in online classes, in Google Meet, in Microsoft Teams. You have the option to either open your mic, open your camera, but unfortunately most of us don't, and that's where there is a lack of engagement between students and teachers. And I understand it completely, because some of us are like, oh no, I don't want to show my face. Maybe it's not, maybe I'm just not ready to be in front of the camera, right? But I think that when you take the extra effort to, portray yourself as an image and to engage with people, and even, having that regular conversation, having a laugh here and there, that for me just makes my day more. And that's why I like to also mention about today's session. Actually engaging in this sort of platform, for me, is a method for me in coping as well with the mental stress, because I get to talk with new people, I get to engage with the audience, and for me that is a way of me venting my stress. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think making full use of technology in a sense. So yeah.
That is wonderful, especially in the midst of online classes and this whole pandemic itself. I think we've all like adapted to online classes by now, but of course there's still many of us who are struggling, and I really appreciate that, Nabhan. I think that's really important that we have to, like you said, make use of it, like make the best of what we got, because like if we want to compare ourselves with other people, some people don't even have internet, some people don't even have the access of phones and being able to contact their friends. So I think what I want to say for the last ending words would be grateful. Be grateful for everything. Be grateful for the little things in life, and always be grateful for family, friends, and the education that we actually get to enjoy in Malaysia. And inshallah, in the future, I'm pretty sure everyone here is going to continue your studies overseas. So I wish everyone best of luck in your A-level studies, because I'm sure everyone here is undergoing A-levels. So yes, thank you so much everyone for joining this forum tonight. We're so sorry for the slight technical difficulties. Thank you for the audiences in the comment sections. Let me see some hearts. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be sharing everything that we've got tonight on our Instagram account. And I think that's all. But before we end this session, let us pose for the camera. We're going to take some screenshots. Okay, everybody smile for the camera. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Another one, another pose. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Luqman,
Afika,
Adinda, Nabhan. Yes.
do we have a link for feedback?
For what? I'm so sorry.
Feedback.
Feedback, yes. Okay, for everyone who has joined this session, there is going to be a Google form link that we will add in the comment section once we've posted this live on our account. And also for the speakers, we will send you personally the feedback surveys for us to know what we can improve and what you guys enjoyed from this event. So everyone who's here, please do give us some time to answer the survey. Okay, thank you, Nabhan, for reminding me. All right, thank you again, Adinda, Luqman, and Nabhan. I hope you guys have a very good night. Thank you everyone for joining, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye. See you guys next time, inshallah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.